Hey Alka, welcome to day 1000.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Super stoked to have a chat with you. I feel a lot of founders, especially in India, would love to be in your shoes one day. You've in a very strategic role in India in the earlier parts of your career. You've then moved abroad, worked in hyper-scale startups, being one of the founder members, and now you launched your own company. So, super stoked to kind of unpack all of that. But let's start with an introduction. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and the company?
Let's start with the introduction. I'm originally from India, born, brought up, raised to a family of professors. And as a result of which didn't have a lot of options on what I had to study, so studied engineering. It was very much decided that I'll become a professor too or become an academician. But I think I went outside India to do my master's, and I think it changed the trajectory a little, where I realized that I can be data and tech driven, but I can play different roles. And that's how I got introduced to the world of startups. Somewhere in that journey, my first gig itself was in an early stage startup called Nearby, worked with some of the brilliant minds of the country, I feel. And I think after that, I realized that, the world is your paradise. You can go anywhere and learn. And the idea was always to be in the 0 to 1 space because I was just chasing learning. And I still do think I chase learning. Moved to Southeast Asia with a ride hailing company called Grab. At that time, they were just ride hailing. Then they expanded into the food business where I played a pivotal role in expansion across Southeast Asia. Then moved into their fintech universe, which was payments, insurance, and investment. Did that for a while and the company got big. Realized I think it's not the room I want to be in. I want to go back to a 0 to 1 space. So joined another fintech early days, third employee, scaled the company to 500 people. We raised $80 million there. We were servicing 7 million users. Did that for 4 years. And I think at the end of the fourth year, there was a very massive burnout that hit me. It was 8 years of almost very hyper growth roles back to back. So took a nice eat, pray, love break in Bali and realized I would love to go back to building, but this time build for myself and not for others' vision and others' ways of building. And that's how I ended up building Podium. Podium is a peer discovery and connections platform for working women in Singapore today. We have 400 plus paying members. We recently closed our last round in Q4. Interestingly, more than 70% of the round came from our own customers who tried the product, loved it, and eventually invested. So that's about me.
Fantastic. No, I think it's a phenomenal journey and raising from your community is very, very cool. I recently, have observed this happening with a lot of community businesses, even in India. And I think people really feel a stronger part of it. So let's start with, the first 30 days probably of you building, Podium. And I believe you've done 0 to 1s multiple times. So you could give a broader answer as well. It's very hard to get customers when you're starting something new. And I would love to know from you when you were building this out on day zero, how did you get your first customers?
0 to 1 is, I feel like now interesting because you feel like you're in the part of experimentation. So I think for Podium, it was literally getting comfortable to sell to everyone I knew in my universe, from close friends to people I worked with, people who I met at a party. I would go and tell them about Podium and convince them to attend an event. So I think our first, not first 30, I think our first 100 members came from just asking our friends to try what we are doing, give us honest feedback. It's very uncomfortable to do it, especially because you have your own identity, something you built that you're a leader somewhere or you're working somewhere. Now all of a sudden you have to remove that and shake that identity off and go and ask someone, hey, would you spend your time and energy on something I'm building? And I think that's how the first few 100 came in. And I think that also is the reason how we grew later on. So we grew also because of referral. And this is very centric to, say, a community based or a D2C business, also, I think will fall in the same place. Is that you get your friends to try, and if you're trying, and if they are ready to spend their money on a service that you are building, they will eventually refer it to their friends and their friends. So Podium grew almost 85% through word of mouth because of this. That's one thing. I would say, I think second thing was also what we did well, I think in hindsight, which I feel like protected us a little, is that we were not trying to be ice cream for everyone. We just wanted to do one thing well for one age group. So initially, I remember we were only targeting women in 30s, period. Women in 30s, women in 30s. And I think to a place where we started getting scolded or like we started getting a lot of feedback on why aren't you building for women in all age groups? And I think the specificity allowed us to build a product that at least reached some level of traction very quickly, because you know the problem, you know who the customer is, and you know what to sell. So being very specific helped.
I think word of mouth, asking friends, and having a laser sharp focus on like your ICP is, I think, generally very good advice. But people struggle coming up with an ICP on day zero.
Hmm.
They often feel, yeah, I have a scalable idea, so potentially anybody could use it. And zoning in on that ICP is a little hard because you're always feeling FOMO, whenever you're getting a lead which is outside that ICP. So, first, what's your general decision framework to decide this is the ICP? Is it more gut or is it data driven? And secondly, how do you handle leads coming in outside your ICP in the earlier stage of your business when revenue is important?
We also had this. We also said yes to a lot of things and then learned to say no to a lot of things. I feel like, let me take a step back. I think there are three types of founders usually, or people who get into this madness by choice. I would say there are three types of people. Number one, people who are subject matter experts in something and they know it in and out and they just go ahead and build something. Like if in my old universe, if I would have built something in fraud, abuse, or data systems, that's my subject matter expertise because I spent a lot of time and energy on someone else's dime on building something for them. I think the second kind are people who feel like there's a market opportunity gap and they're just keen to build and there's some trend which is rising. Like, for example, in 2020 in the world, there was a crypto universe that was going. Now there's an AI universe and now there is a evolved agentic universe we are in. So I feel like that's the second kind of builders. And the third kind of builders are I call them Delulu passionates, which is me, which is people who just fall in love with a problem that they genuinely want to solve and they spend time on it. I feel like in the first category, it is very easy for them to know because they know what problem they are solving, who's the customer, they will be able to make a sale to them very easily. I think the second ones are like the optimistic folks because they have bought gotten into a bandwagon where they're learning on the go. So I think they will go through the journey, which I think the journey of what I also went through in some ways was we said yes to every money opportunity that came in. So which meant like hosting a book launch. And I said yes to. I still feel like why did we say yes? But we said yes to it because our idea was that anything that keeps the company afloat and gets the money in the bank, we would do it. And sometimes you have to do it. Sometimes the money that 10,000 check really would pay for 3 months of payroll, you just bite the bullet and you do it. I will say it's not idealistic, but it's very practical. And I think for the third category, where you're building from a place of passion, which was where I was also, I think slowly when you start getting burnt with that passion, you start to learn to say no. So I think for me was the two parts where we said yes to many things and then realized, okay, it helped save the company to get it where it was. And the second part was when you're like, okay, this is not fitting with the vision where we are. Maybe this customer may not be what we want to service today. They might be someone I will be able to service 2 years from now. And you just accept it as part of your constraints and move on, I would say.
Lovely. I think really, really well articulated. I think I got this approach of three types of builders for the first time and I really resonate with what you said. It really depends on, your approach to this particular problem. I want to now hop on to the
Saying
second.
no is a luxury. Saying
Sorry?
no is luxury early stage founders don't have. So you just accept it. Like I don't I feel like even in my journey today, I might be saying yes to a lot of things which I will say no to in 2 years from now. So saying no is a luxury you get, which is earned with time, I would say.
Correct, correct. I think the last, caveat is very, very critical because it's very easy to hear feedback from a lot of people who've scaled their companies to hear, focus is critical. But when you understand how they did their 0 to 1, you'll realize so many more things. So now I'll jump into the second part of our conversation, which is founders have a lot of temptation to grow fast. News encourages that, VCs encourage that. If you don't grow fast, what's the point of you being in a startup is the general advice which comes in. And that's why, be it through funding or many other things, you end up making a lot of spends you regret, right? Thinking if I throw, some money here, I'll get more ROI, more speed. Could you share any spends you regret so far in your journey?
We didn't have money. I don't think we made a lot of sense. But I would say this, because I think I have years of experience to back this on a little, is two things I would say. Number one, I feel like a lot of times the whole VC game is too glorified. That you raise money, then you go and raise the next round you roll. I think the last decade has spoiled how capitalistic in the market. So I would say this is something I've built as a theory in the last 2 years, is there's no right way of building. Today you could be building like a good bootstrap business, and maybe the margins are low, and then or maybe the margins are very high and it's unscalable, but it is still a dhanda which is making money. And I think we have, especially in India, I think we discount this a lot, is a good business is a good business which makes money. It is growing at an X rate per month. May not be at the 100x rates that the venture capital folks want, but if that's a good business. So I want to just call this out for anybody who's starting a business, is that there's not one way to build a business. You could be working somewhere and also moonlighting till you figure out your product market fit. You could also be someone who went all out and built something. You could also be a sole proprietor who's trying to engage their services into a business today which does not look scalable, but maybe at some day you will become the Lenny Raczewski of the world and you will be the content creation engine in some way. So that's one call out, I would say. I think my second call out is in terms of expenses. Money, it should only be taken when necessary. It is an unnecessary evil in the journey. I think seeing the two companies and two hyper growth scale ups is that you will, when you take that much capital, the targets follow and the valuation justification is very real. So what anyone would do is you would throw money at the problem and people at the problem. To get good people, you'll pay great money. You are lucky if they are great people, they don't make mistakes. Sometimes great people don't have great situations around them that they're not able to make the right decisions, and as a result of which companies would lose money. I think we've made a lot of mistakes in rushing things to the market too quickly, not doing risk assessments properly, or not validating from the users what do they want and just gone out and ran digital marketing ads. So there was a month I remember in one of my gigs where we were running $1 million in ads every month, and just to realize after 3 months the product itself doesn't have PMF. Like, you spend 3 million to learn your product doesn't have PMF is a expensive mistake, according to me.
Right. Fantastic. So I think understanding PMF and then doubling down on ad spends is something which most people don't do, is the biggest takeaway. And that's why I think be very careful with your money and understand that, VCs proudly say only 9 out of 10 companies succeed, which is not really true actually, if you think about it. Like, being somebody who has a lot of SMEs in their family, I can say that it takes 30 years sometimes to build a highly profitable company which can help you, which can help you have like legacy level of funds. But people give up too fast because the notion is that within 12, 15 months you don't make growth, you don't do growth, that's a bad idea, and people shut it. So really, second what you said here as well. Next up comes, a conversation we need to have on channels of acquisition. So every business has a very nuanced approach on what channels work for them, and that's why it's generally a trial and error you need to do, which ends up, costing money and time to figure this out. So the idea was to try and see if anybody is building a community today, if they can learn from you on, what seems to be like a good channel of acquisition. So in your first, few 100 days, could you tell us what were some underrated channels of acquisition and what were some overrated channels of acquisition?
Okay, so I'll tell you how I think about this, and then I think it'll segue into the answer. I feel like growth, I call this a growth universe in general, and I feel like growth universe is like a toolbox. There are some things which are like screwdrivers, there are some things like a hammer, and there are some things which are more like minute, detail oriented cleaning services or whatever. So I feel like in your journey of building a business, you need to use all your toolkits. And these toolkits may look different for different people, but there's a toolkit you build and everybody's going to use. So our 2025, say the first 6-9 months of building, first 100 days, word of mouth referral worked really well. But then we realized word of mouth will only take you so far. But if you don't have a good Instagram page in today's universe to show that you look legit. It doesn't need to have big followers. It just needs to have that vibe that this looks legit in some ways. So then you work on your Instagram organic in some ways, or even not organic. It's like just putting your stuff, putting yourself. Then I think in the next place came, there's no way to be referral to be incentivized, because the good faith referral, which happened because of knowing the founders, dies. Now you like a product, but you need to be incentivized to refer more. Refer linearly, yes, but refer compoundingly, you need something. So you need to build something in from technology over there. If you're a hot problem that everybody is solving, then your organic and your SEO, and now in today's world, AI SEO, whatever they're calling it, should be solved in some ways, because that's when people start searching for you. Then becomes the next problem. Are you in the right places at the right time? Where I think in my 18 months or like 20, whatever, 20 plus months of building, 24 months plus of building Podium, I feel like influencer channel doesn't work. It's a very contrary take because I feel like people have gone away from the journey of my favorite influencer, or like the worship to the influencer universe is dead. Now it's like people are entering into the era of people wanting to be a little imperfect, not real. And I think very soon we will walk out of this also because now everybody's trying to be that in some ways. So I feel like influencers didn't work for Podium even though we tried, by because we have a physical product. They can actually come to an event, share an experience, be honest, and something to share. So I feel like influencers didn't work. Digital marketing does work. Like I think paid channels do work, but I think paid channels should come in when you feel like you have nothing else because that's your accelerator. Your product is ready. You feel like you don't have enough. First few experiments, yes, pay and do it. But I feel like if you have, like we will only use Instagram. We've used it recently, but we will only use Instagram more when our app is ready. It's working seamlessly. The journey is defined because then you can quickly justify your dollar value spent to actual value created in the business as compared to testing you're trying your digital ads. But I've also seen one thing is we've tried ads for a newer products to just get feelers from the market. That I think is called experimentation budget, which you can park in. So yeah, that's how we've done our growth. Good things, good channels. I still believe in organic, referral, direct searches, brand direct searches. These are the three very old school way of building, I would say. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, I think throwing a wide net in the start is smart, where, as you said, there are multiple tools, each having its own purpose, which you should at least employ. You never know what may work for you, till you try it. And then you keep on optimizing that, right? And I think what I learned is that probably influencer is a little bit overrated, while generally referrals and direct is underrated still. For that, you obviously have to create a fantastic product experience and really care for your customers, and that's how you incentivize that, which is obviously the hardest part. But I think that totally works. So super. I think these are the three questions we ask all our guests, and thank you for so beautifully articulating each and every one of them. As a parting thought, Alka, I'd like to ask you I think the most important question, right, which is getting through these days is the hardest, right? I I recently was talking to somebody who said starting a company is like going to the gym, and I was like, not really, because you can see progress after 10, 15 days, after 1, 2 months. Here, sometimes it's been a year, and you're like nothing is working, and then something may come up. So you've done many 0 to 1s. Obviously, you're in your, you're I think finishing the first 1,000 days very soon. So, what's kind of kept you going, and what's your advice to founders to stay resilient?
I say you should bury something in the process of building. Like when you're thinking about starting to build, one, I think you should think about it from a, and maybe I'm a romantic, so take this with a pinch of salt. I think you should think about it from a long term play with like right quantifiers. Like I had my first check on will this business make money on my 18th month? My next one was at my 24th month. My next one now is on my 3.5 year mark. There are different marks at which I just have these chats with myself. But long term thinking on buying into the problem is very important because, which is why I said that there are three types of builders. The third type of builders generally last, otherwise, or the first to get a lot of success and they last, because for lasting something which is not going to give you 9 out of 10 days more headache than happiness, you really need to be married to it. So, for example, I'm married to, when I started, I was married to the process of building. And now I'm married to my customers in a way and the pain point in a way that I live it. So I'm like, okay, this is how they're thinking. So I'm also thinking like this. So I think slowly you need to know whether you're married to, you need to know what you're married to. Are you married to success? Are you married to validation? And whatever you're married to, your reasons could be right. Whatever you're married to, you just know this is what I'm married to, and you ensure that marriage is intact. You do everything to maintain that marriage, and everything else falls in place. So for me, it is I'm married to the process of building very heavy. So I genuinely wake up every morning feeling it's going to be fun. Let's do this. I feel like you need to, yeah, it's a very inherent drive in place. And some days are low, I will call it out. And for that, I have a small hack, which I tell everybody. If I could tell every founder to have this, is I have a company wide document, which I call a happy place document. Whenever something good happens in the company, whether it is somebody did a great job, our product got launched in record time, or a feedback from customer was amazing, somebody wrote something nice on LinkedIn, a voice note, all of it goes into this public space. Whenever you have a shit day, you just go through it so that it feels like, okay, today was shit, temporarily life is shit, but permanently it's not that shit. So yeah.
You really realize that in your low days when you have to keep on going, how important vision is when you're starting up. writing your vision document, it seems a little too abstract and vague. But you then do realize that, okay, you really have to believe in what you're doing, because it's going to take a long time, 10 years at the minimum, often I've seen. So fantastic, Alka. Thank you so much for sharing all your thoughts. This is the end of the conversation. I hope you had a good time.
Yeah, this was a good chat. I've not had one of these in a while. I feel like too busy building. So yeah, this feels good.
Superb, superb. Thank you for tuning in. And for everybody who's, joined till the end, thank you so much. If you'd like to hear another founder come in and share their experience, please subscribe to our channels. Bye bye.
Bye bye.